Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu Cree, and Dakota peoples, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nations in Treaty 3 territory. The panel members today are Marcel Larondo. I'll be chairing. Valerie Werhan is coming in with Zoom with Richard Whitbread. Our assessor today is Merrick Froelich, and our administrative personnel today is Jaswinder Kumar. We've only got one participant, so we're not going to read that. We are hearing applications for revision of assessment role in accordance with the Municipal Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application. We will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matter must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessment of properties are not considered evidence of market value at the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing, which is a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decision with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to application of exemption from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to address with some applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after the application have been heard, and we will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live stream recorded and will be part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 1 through 6 on our docket today. Mr. Kumar, please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Mr. Froelich, please state your full name.
Merrick Froelich.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, please state your full name.
Rocky Neufeld.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Mercury, please state your full name.
James Mercury.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
We will be starting off with item number 1, 172 Sherbrooke Street. We have multiple points on this one. Is it liability and taxation?
It's liability and class, Mr. Chair.
Liability and class?
Not value?
Value as well.
I'm just specifically, I'm just wondering why Mr. Mercury's here, for which property, or is it for all of them?
I think 172 Sherbrooke is just value, if I'm not mistaken. Rocky, is that correct?
Oh, I was waiting for Merrick to run the hearing.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mercury is going to be here for 3 properties, and then he'd like to leave: 172 Sherbrooke, 755 Portage, and 1031 Portage. As to 172 Sherbrooke, I'm not sure. I don't think I filled this out. I think that Michael Mercury may have filled this out. I believe it's just a value issue.
Yeah, I think the class liability, I believe, was resolved some time ago.
I think for all of them they have been, so that's why I'm just wondering.
Yeah, it's just an abundance of caution. So on occasion there are some changes, but I think the only issue is value.
Value on this one? So you'll sign off on the, did you say liability then? Or on class?
Yes, liability and class is not being pursued on these.
No, and we've presented no evidence on that note either.
Okay, so you'll sign them off and send them in?
Sure, yeah. Okay.
Thank you. So we'll be dealing with 172 Sherbrooke just on value. Merrick, if you will start it up, please.
Yep, for sure. I will read the value onto the docket, and then I have a question with regards to, or an issue with regard to some of the preliminary issues. File number is 22-3053. Roll number is 12097803980. There's $151,000 that's listed as classification 20 taxable. Then there's $1,157,000 as 40 institutional, which is school exempt, for a total value of $1,308,000. My first preliminary issue that I have here is with regards to some of the content in Mr. Neufeld's document. He has included information.
Should we be dealing with his information when he presents it, or do you want to?
Well, it's up to the chairperson. So, and that's fine as well. I was just wondering what would be the best way to proceed, and that's fine. I'll do it then.
Okay.
This is presentation.
Thank you.
What we have here is address is 172 Sherbrooke, Clubhouse of Winnipeg, Incorporated. It used to be an old Greek restaurant many moons ago. I remember driving by it as a young child. Year built was 1971 to 1977. Wall height is 10 to 12 feet. We have a land area of 17,322, and we have a leasable area of 9,158 square feet. There's also 20 outdoor parking spots located here. As you can see on page 2 is I've never inspected this property. Page 2 shows just the exterior finish of the building, and on the bottom of page 2 shows the location of it, that it's in the Wolseley district between Sherbrooke and Maryland. Property owner has been compliant with regards to completing their income expense mailer. There are 20 spots located on this property, and what we have here is at a unit stall rate of $31.50 with an annual rental value of $75.60 in total. For a net operating income of $75.60, using a 5% cap rate, we come up with $151,000. We're using $31.50. We got a range of rents here for surface parking lot between $76.53 all the way to $32.07, and they're all in the relative vicinity of the subject property. The OFS portion of this building has a total area of 9,157 square feet based on 2 different PIDs for a total potential rent of $95,105. Using 6% vacancy, 3% for expenses, $8 for shortfall, we come up with a net operating income of $78,675. Using a cap rate of 6.8%, we come up with a value of $1,157,000. Combined with the $151 from the parking lot income, we come up with $1,308,000. What we have here is we have a list of comparables of OFSs throughout the entire city of Winnipeg, showing the range of rents. And the bottom of page 7 shows the workups for both properties that we have here. Page 8 is our cap rate study for what we've for the cap rates that we've used, and it's within the 20th to 80th percentile range. And the property owner has completed his income and expense mailers. Thank you very much, and that concludes my formal presentation.
Questions? Jamie, you going first or Rocky?
I think Rocky will be questioning here.
Okay, Mr. Neufeld?
Yes. You mentioned before this was a restaurant. Why is it not still a restaurant?
I do not know the history of the building. All I do know is that on the front cover of your page, it said it was built to suit for the health authority. So I don't have any details and I haven't inspected it, but I'm pretty sure it's not built to suit for the health authority based on the history of the building.
Well, I was just asking questions about your evidence, not mine. Now,
I understand that, but the reason why I presented that it was an old restaurant is that it was an old restaurant. It's currently a clubhouse for the city of Winnipeg. It's a charitable organization. That's all the information I have.
if the property was built as a restaurant and in use as a restaurant, and now it's no longer a restaurant, does that not infer or make clear that it's an obsolete use?
No, because lots of buildings get repurposed and refunctioned in many different areas. And I would not say that it's been, that it's an obsolete building.
The current use is as a community service charitable organization. Do they normally select new buildings, quality buildings, or are they, to your knowledge, are they budget limited?
You know what? I'm just looking at the realty of the property. I don't look at the business decision process of this establishing where nonprofits should or should not be.
You have, sorry, no, just page 4. Was this done by the model?
Yes, it was.
And with a 6.8% cap, was there any consideration for the previous obsolescence?
Well, just it has a higher cap rate. If it was a newer building, it would have a much lower cap rate.
Well,
So,
speaking specifically to the change in use not fulfilling it. Now, you mentioned you haven't been in it, but I have taken other assessors through the building, and they have made notes on the fact that it's no longer capable of being used as a restaurant. Did you not find those notes in your files?
I'm just giving the history of the building here right now. There are no pictures on the website with regards to the current use of the building, and showing me pictures of the building. And so I would have to double check to see how long the organization has been there. In the file notes we don't have a huge history of file notes for this property. All we do have is that there was a replot that had taken place in 2016, and I'd have to double check on this, but it was a replot divided 2 rolls into one with income producing property. Clubhouse parcel purchased adjacent lot. City merged lots under a new roll number and just the income for it. So that's
okay.
What we have in file.
So you don't have the notes from the previous assessors?
You know what? You know what? The point is, I didn't look at the previous notes because of the replot that had taken place, and so when the replot took place, I would have to do more due diligence to look at the file notes that we have for the previous roll number.
I see.
If you like, Mr. Neufeld, I could take a recess. I could find the phone number, and then I could provide more information on that for you.
Yeah, certainly. Or if you don't have an objection to it, I could provide pictures that were taken at the time of the inspection with the previous assessor.
Well, that would be new evidence, and that should have been included in your brief, so I would object to that.
Well, no, it's rebuttal because I asked you if you had the other notes from the last inspection, and you said you didn't have them. So, if you want to worry about getting this right, or you want to worry about procedures, I just want to get it right.
Well, when I look at the overall value of the property, Mr. Neufeld, I believe that you should have included those pictures when you first presented that, because then I would be able to rebut it and do more research. So I don't think you're being true to the process by not including pictures on that. So I do want to get it right, but in the same regards,
I believe you should have sourced the previous assessor's notes.
Well, I believe that you should include pictures of that in your brief.
Okay, thank you for letting us know that, gentlemen. Now let's move on.
Okay. I'm gonna submit them, and if the board allows them, the board allows them. If they don't, so be it. But you'll have them before I begin. Sorry, now back to business at hand. The rents that were listed here on your page 5, 6, and 7, did you select these?
These are model this is done by the office section. That includes all the net office rents that we have in the office section. So
okay,
it's a template used by all appeal assessors in the office section.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's what I was wondering. And why are there some that are covered in blue?
You know what had happened is there was an issue with regards to some of the rents that we had used for these properties, and so I was told to remove them, and then I was told to put them back in, but I didn't bother putting them back in, so I just left it as it is.
Okay. And with these particular rents, are you relying on any in specifically?
No, that's a general trend, you know, because the rents are all over the city. I'm not going to use a $22 rent or a $20 rent for a building like this that's brand new. So I think the rents are reflective of the condition and other rents in the neighborhood.
And are there any from the West End?
Because if I go through them here, well, the interesting part about this is, let me just go through this here right now, right? And so when I see, well, not really, you know.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, you know what? I got one on Sargent for $13, comparable 85. And so these are old because like this property type class is an OFS. So it's office suburban. So the majority of these offices are in suburban locations. There are sometimes in different areas. Like sometimes there are OFSs in the downtown area when they're smaller in structure. Page 62 is at $11, which is favorable to what we have. And in some regards, you know, so.
Well, sorry, you mentioned the one, is that the one you mentioned on being on Sargent?
Yeah, yeah, but those ones are closer to the airport.
Yeah, that's at the corner of Sargent and King Edward. I mean King Edward, isn't it?
Yeah. So
it's the old Jaguar dealership, right?
I do believe so.
Yeah, okay, so that's not West End.
Yeah, it's like I said, because you know this building here per se, it's an older building, an older stock. That's why we don't have a lot of rents that are.
And how many investment sales in office occurred in the last year before the reference date?
I'm pretty sure an investor would not want to purchase a property like this. This is usually probably an owner-occupied type of property where it would be a local person. So this wouldn't classify as a typical investment sale.
No, and
it's just like a lot of properties like that are on Wall Street or on Erin. You know, those type of properties are not investment sales categories because they're not at that level. They're smaller in size. They're older as dated in age. Those would not qualify under investment sale. But with that being said, that does not mean it does not have value, or it would not be does not have value to an organization.
Yeah, I really wasn't what I was asking. What I was asking about was the creation of your model and your system. How many investment sales in office occurred in the year before the reference period? Do you know?
I do not know.
Okay. And I've asked this question of other assessors, and generally the answer has been 0. Do you think that's incorrect, or would you think that that's a pretty fair estimate?
You know what? I would say if you're presenting it as a question, I would say that's probably a fair estimate.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm a bit puzzled, because we know that there was a lack of data, and there's some consensus that there was a lack of data. How does the model then take the previous assessment and increase it 60% without data?
Well, we didn't agree. Well, the initial cut was from 1.2 million to like 1,261,000 to 817, and we didn't agree with the value of that cut at that time. So it was just we just let it flow through.
Okay, but that's still an increase, isn't it? You have no data, and the model is indicating an increase in office.
I would disagree with the no data comment, but we based all of our information on the on what is received from property owners within the city of Winnipeg. So,
But do you have any evidence of cap rates at all to present to the board other than what the model?
yeah, usually cap rates are discussed more thoroughly at the municipal board. You know, we're dealing with 6 properties here, like in a 3-hour window. So usually when these type of properties get appealed at the municipal board, that's when we look at the cap rates. We provided a short cap rate study with regards to where we feel this property is, and I feel comfortable with that information that we've presented.
In regard to the classification as OFS, you are aware it's a community service building and they perform outreach services and provide hot meals for the people who attend it. Is OFS the right category?
That's the category that we're using for this type of property, because if this property wasn't a community outreach building, its functionality would probably be serve another function, which would probably go back either to, with not knowing the details of it, but the infrastructure of the building has it as an OFS tier today, and that's what I'm presenting.
Well, no, I'm just going back to my first question. Built as a restaurant, in use as a community service. Do you have another category other than OFS that it might be in, that it could be in?
Without an inspection of this property, without having pictures of this property, I can't make that comment.
Thanks. I'll just, if Mr. Mercury has any questions. I'm fine. I'm done.
Yeah, just briefly, the previous decision, Mr. Froelich, was it appealed to the municipal board?
No, it was not.
All right. And just very briefly on your methodology of approximately 80 comparables, is there any reason why that list would not have been shrunk down to something more manageable and appropriate to the subject?
You know what? Due to the workload of the areas, we use a standardized sheet with regards to comparables for all these type of properties.
Okay, so I take it it's just a timing issue and resources issue that you're not able to.
Just like, yeah, we're under the gun like everyone else is.
All right, those are my questions. Thank you.
Richard, do you have any questions?
I have none, thank you.
Valerie, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good, thank you.
And I'm good. We'll move on to the presentation from Mr. Neufeld. I understand you have some concerns before Mr. Neufeld gives his presentation.
I'm just curious about this is because when I look at starting at page 4 of Mr. Neufeld's brief, this is from a 2016 hearing, and the information would come from an April 1st, 2014 reference date. And I don't see the relevancy of it because it's 7 years away from the document. And the document that's been presented here has not been heard. There has not been any information exchanged. There hasn't been a decision placed on this. And the hearing, the actual hearing date for this property was on March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 2022, which would also make it post-reference. So that's my first preliminary issue.
You're saying that it's
post-reference information. This usually when we look at
this says November 4th, 2020.
But the actual hearing hasn't taken place yet. So because the hearing hasn't taken place yet and an order hasn't taken place yet, this information can't be used.
Okay, what do you have to say to that, Mr. Neufeld?
I was muted. I said something nasty. I said that was nonsense because the assessor did his preparation for today's evidence well after the reference date. So he's saying that if you prepare information after the reference date using older information, it's not valid. That's nonsense. In regard to the relevance, the assessor can question the relevance as it's presented. The board can question the relevance, but the assessor can't exclude information because he doesn't believe it to be relevant because it's our argument, not his. There's some stuff in there that we're probably not even going to touch on, but there's an issue that we like to bring forward, and has nothing to do with any of the data that's presented there. I don't think that you can take our argument away. That's why it's being presented.
I guess we're gonna have a discussion on this.
Yeah,
Is there
and fundamentally, if there is greater detail that goes into the presentation here, it's 7 years away from the reference date. You know, these are 2013 mailers with the reference date of April 1st, 2014.
Well,
You know?
in that regard, last hearing I was at, where one of the assessor's colleagues was presenting, he was quoting municipal board cases from 20 years ago. So there's no such thing as a cutoff line, and the concept of discussing the theory is at stake here. And I just suggest board can listen to it, decide on it, and I would have spent less time telling you why it's there than we've spent today on it as a preliminary matter. I don't think we need to put up with unnecessary delays. The board can assign the weight they'd like on it, but as a point of procedure, there's nothing wrong with this.
And before the recess takes place, Mr. Lorando, the other issue I have with regards to this is starting on page 11. If the assessment department brought in the reference documentation that was dated June 11th, 2021, after the reference date, I'm confident that the applicant would ask for that information to be removed, and I would like the same to occur for this property as well.
Sorry, June 11th. This is the Johnson report.
On page 11, June 21. It's the reference date for this cycle is April 1st, 2021. So this is post-reference data that you've included here.
No, it isn't.
It's dated it.
It's published June of 21. Again, let's go back to the same issue. That means your evidence is out because you published it 14 days ago. Now, Mr. Johnson has the same privilege as you in that he produces information from a previous date and prints it on June of 21. If you actually had the copy of it, which I have right here, and went through it, you would find that there's not a single data entry that is newer than December 30th, 2020. He compiles his information in 2020, he analyzes it in 21 and prints it in June and sells it. And I know Mr. Johnson well, and I've quizzed him on this several times, and several assessors keep bringing this point up. And I think that it's frivolous. It's a waste of time again. If you don't know the process, you should not be bringing complaints. Just making a blind complaint because you see a publication date is not appropriate. Look at the data. And by the way, I know that the city is a subscriber, so that makes this a doubly insulting issue, because you know that there's no data in here that post reference. The copyright at the bottom is June of 2021. That's to say that everybody's information can't be used in hearings because you publish it at a different time.
My issue clearly states, because whenever we collect any data, my question is how come Mr. Neufeld didn't present data from the December 2020 report? Why did he have to go to June? That information is clearly available for Mr. Neufeld.
Because the period
and for me, it's about consistency. We are held to certain standards, and I expect the agents to be the same.
No. See, that's wrong again, because the June 2020 report would have data from 2019.
December 2020, Mr. Neufeld.
Oh no, they don't do the vacancy report in December. It's done in June. He does a different report in December. The June one is the vacancy one.
I'm just going to interject here, Mr. Chair, if I can, just to try to streamline the applicant's position. This has been, as Mr. Neufeld indicated, this has been dealt with on numerous occasions with respect to the Johnson report. It's clearly established that it's a publication date. I don't think we need to debate whether Mr. Neufeld chose to use an earlier publication or not is irrelevant. He's produced this. It's not post-reference, and we should move on. We should also deal with the issue of the photographs to streamline. There are other matters on the docket this morning, so I think we should try to be expeditious in how we deal with these objections. What Mr. Neufeld was hoping to put forward by way of rebuttal is simply photographs of the subject property. Frankly, it's surprising that the assessor would object to that type of information being put forward. It's the function of everyone here to get it right. These are photos that would be in the assessor's own file. They're simply photos of the subject. So I can't imagine there's anything objectionable about that. But I think those are the issues that are before you. And unless there are any other preliminary objections, I think we should just deal with them and move on with the substantive positions of the parties on value. But I thought I would just interject, try to streamline the issues here so we can move on.
I would love to do that, but we're going to have it in camera when we have our discussion.
My final point with regards to this, though, is that decisions that have been taking place on the board, the process is in place is to have 14 days of an opportunity to review documents and then to be able to ask questions with regards to this. During this cycle, Mr. Neufeld has brought in a lot of rebuttal evidence, which I sort of question as being rebuttal. If it's relevant to the property, he should be proactive with regards to presenting that in his brief. Without having an ample opportunity to review the information that he's provided here, puts the assessment department at an advantage. And then subsequently, if that information's communicated before the normal parameters, then the taxpayers lose, because then all of a sudden decisions are made without the assessor having the opportunity to review the documentation properly. And so if Mr. Neufeld...
Mr. Frolick, I've got one question for you.
Yeah.
I did hear that the photographs were taken in the presence of the city employees. You weren't one of them, I take it, but you should have those photographs on hand, should you not, at the city?
Sometimes assessors don't take pictures with regard to the property, and I could not find any on file when I did my research for this property.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We're going to go in camera now, and we'll be back in 5 or so minutes, I think. Thank you. We'll call the meeting back to order. We've decided that we're going to hear this information that is coming forward from Mr. Neufeld, but we'll put the proper weight on it, as we always do in all our meetings. And yes, I'll leave it at that. I could say something else, but I won't. Mr. Neufeld, if you can start your presentation.
Just one question.
Oh, Mr. Neufeld is up now.
I was going to make a recommendation.
What's your recommendation?
Well, Mr. Neufeld hasn't included in his brief the $151,000 for the parking lot. So if we include that, the value is $1,030,000. I take his number, and then the value becomes $1,034,000.
Well, I'm sure Mr. Neufeld didn't include it for a reason, and I'm sure we're going to hear what the reason is. But Mr. Neufeld, are you prepared to accept $1,034,000?
Okay, so that's 883,000 plus 151. Is that how you get that?
Yep.
Okay, that's fine.
Because I want to expedite the process here, and it's just, to me, it makes sense.
And the parking lot is a non-issue. They have no control over it. It's used by the neighbor, but it's classed residential. That was our goal all along. So that's fine.
So you're okay with the 151 added on to the 883, which gives you 1,034,000, correct?
That's correct.
And that's a recommendation. Boy, could we have cured that in a hurry. Thank you very much.
Wasn't it worth it? He's saying something, Mr. Larondo?
Anything in summation, gentlemen?
We're both good with that. So,
do my colleagues have any questions on what we just did or doing?
I don't. Thank you.
Val?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a rec. We're going to move on to 755 Portage Avenue next. Give us a minute to get it up, please. If my mouse would work. 2. Mr. Frolic, yes, Mr. Frolic, when you are ready.
Yep, sure thing. File number is 22-1859. Roll number is 13096119000. The assessed value is $11,965,000. But I'm making a recommendation here to cut the value to $10,644,000. About 5-6 years ago, I don't know if Mr. Mercury was there, but Mr. Neufeld and I inspected this property. There are no pictures taken of it because of the nature of the building. We were asked not to take pictures of the property at that time, but I was in the property. And the property owner has been inconsistent with regards to filling out the income and expense mailers. At one point, the original lease that we had was $38,901, and that was from the 2020 appeal. But other than that, because they went gross and they went net, and for whatever reasons, the correct square footage is 35,201, and that's what I based my recommendation on that area.
Mr. Neufeld?
Yeah, just 1 second. We had a little glitch totally at our end, and I only received these this morning. So I haven't had a chance to run it past the client. And I'm inclined to accept it on the condition that I'm no guarantee we wouldn't file a further appeal. It's up to the client. So I have to ask them, and so if the assessor's all right with that, then we could move on and accept the recommendation.
Mayor?
And yeah, the only, just for information, the 2020 value, and I think Mr. Neufeld has that in his brief, I'm not too sure.
And actually, I don't.
oh no, okay. The 2020 value, just for information, Mr. Neufeld, was 10,712,000.
Yeah.
And this is actually below the 2020 value. And the other point of contention is as long as it states in the order that Mr. Neufeld has to consult with the client.
Well, I mean, they don't have to put in the order. I think that's just a situation between us. When an offer is given, you just have to be clear with each other that there may be additional due diligence. That's all.
Okay.
I don't
think.
And
I'll make sure that I put that in the file notes.
Yeah, that's all. I just don't want be later on when we're trying to negotiate something else. You say, yeah, but you appealed it after you accepted
well,
it.
Mr. Neufeld, we have been burned by you in the past, so that's why I'm saying that.
Merrick, we've been doing real good. Let's try and stay on that.
No worries. I'm just mindful of this, correct? Because
good.
I've made a fair recommendation here, and it's just that I don't like going to more municipal boards than I have to.
Good. So we got a rec of 10,644,000 that is accepted by both of you.
Thank you. Look at us.
We'll take a look at it. We're moving here, guys. Do my colleagues have any questions on that?
No.
Val?
Nope, thank you.
Okay, good. Let's move on to the next one. The next one is 1031 Portage. Make sure I got the right one. Mr. Frolic, when you are ready on 1031 Portage.
22.
We got multiple points on this one too?
Yeah, I have to say that this is the first Addictions Foundation only became part of Shared Health this year, so I don't have any background on it. So I'd like to hear the assessor's brief first, and then we'll comment on our position on liability. We're inclined to let it to not be dealing with it, and that Mr. Mercury has to will give us some advice there. But like I said, we don't have the background on it. It's just new for us. So if we could just proceed, we're not going to present anything. So
And it's already institutional property.
yeah, and we're not going to
Yes.
present. So it's only going to be whether or not we withdraw it is the debate, the
Okay.
request for class.
Thank you very much. Mr. Frolick, Merrick,
Yeah, roll number is 13-02066, 7,000. Properties at 1031 Portage Avenue, and the owners the Addictions Foundation of Manitoba. So there are no rents here in place. Property value it was $2,441,000, and we'd like for that to be confirmed. Original building was built in 1928, and the current effective year that we have for this property is 1972. Since 2012, there was $650,000 worth of permits done to this building. Unfortunately, I've never inspected this building, and I have no pictures of this building. The leasable area is 30,318. And on page 2, you can clearly see that it's an older building with newer windows, and where it's located at on Portage Avenue, in between Sherbrooke and Polo Park. Property owner has been compliant with regards to filling out the income and expense mailers. And this property here is, as you can see by the older date on this is an OFC property because it's an older building. Later on, we'll be discussing about other properties with regards to if they're OFBs or OFCs. This to me clearly is an OFC building. And so that's all I have to say about that. What we have here we have 3 different PIDs for this property. We have the first floor, second floor, and the basement property. And I haven't inspected this, but it doesn't seem to me that you got to walk upstairs for the first floor, and then there's 2 other floors for this building here. And maybe this is it's hard for me to comment with regards to the basement area on the left-hand side of the picture. What we have here is we have rents of $1037, $993, and $261 for the basement area, using a 12% vacancy, 3% for expenses, $10 for shortfall. We come up with a net operating income of $187.94, cap rate of 7.5% to come up with the $2,441,000. We have a list of OFCs on our list on page 4 and 5 with regards to what the average and the weighted average of all the rents are. We're slightly below the average and the weighted mean rents that we have for this property shown. Property owner, here's our cap rate study on page 7, and the property owner has completed the income expense mailers, clearly stating that it's an owner-occupied building. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Neufeld, questions?
Yes. Page 1, you've got a change in the effective date, and you're talking about permits. Did you read any of these permits?
Yeah, so we looked at the values. Essentially, what it boils down to is just like, because there wasn't any, they haven't shown any true significant changes to the building, but new washrooms, new flooring, new moving of office walls. They replaced some doors, some changes to the second floor. That's the general history of it.
How about the one from 2013, repair work due to vehicle impact to building? Do you recall? Do you have that in your listing?
Maybe that's why I didn't write it, because it was an anomaly. I didn't include that one in my section because it didn't add any value to the building, so that's probably why I did it. But in fairness, because the building ran into it, it's made some improvements to the building.
You think that a vehicle hitting a building and shaking the foundation up is an improvement?
Well, it all depends with regards to the repairs that they probably restructured this and probably put enough backing and enough supports to make improvements to the overall infrastructure so it wouldn't fall down again.
How about the sprinkler pipe bursting in 2019? I know that made the news because they had to relocate and they went out of town. So you've got 2 major incidents happen to the building requiring repair and permits. Now, what in your workup indicates that there was an improvement made, or was it just a repair?
Well, if there is a repair, it does become an improvement.
How do you figure that?
Well, the point is, if I have an old bathroom toilet and fixtures, and if I exchange my 1970s fixtures for 21st century fixtures, that would be an improvement.
Okay, so new toilets makes the value improve by 50 years. Is that
No,
what I'm reading here?
what I'm saying though, without an inspection of this property, I don't, and I've clearly stated that I haven't been to this property. And in your brief, Mr. Neufeld, you haven't provided any pictures of this property. So we're dealing with hypotheticals here.
Okay, so if you've got a hypothetical, why are you erring on the side of penalizing for value?
Penalizing for value? Well, I don't believe that we're penalizing for value.
Well, you haven't inspected, you've got permits. The date's been changed from 28 to 72, which causes an increase in value. Now you're saying it's an assumption that work was done. So how can you, on an assumption, did anybody go in there and inspect it? Did you send an architect or an engineer?
Oh, Mr. Neufeld, okay.
Did you send an architect or engineer to review these?
That's an unfair question to ask, Mr.
Well, no, just a yes or no. Do you know?
Well, the point is, usually PP&D would handle with regards to the safety and the stability of the property. I can't comment on that.
Okay,
I can't comment on what other departments do.
That's all I was looking for. Now on page 3, this was done by the model, then I can assume?
That is correct.
And if the date were 1928 versus 1972, would it be fair to say that that value would be lower?
Well, the point is, I'm pretty sure that it is fair to say that, but right now we have this building being 52 years old. Right now, at this time, we're 53 years old, based on the 1972 effective date. I'm sure there have been upgrades over the years with regards to, the electrical work that's being done, the upgrades that have been done to have computers into the office. So I'm confident with the 1972 effective year that we have here. But like I've stated before, if this property was in such disarray, and if this was the angle that Mr. Neufeld wanted to pursue, he would have included those pictures in his briefs.
Well, you're trying to do my work for me, so
Well,
just stick to what you know.
Well, what I'm saying though is that I don't think a 1972 effective year built is unfair for this type of property.
All right, now these rents on page 4 and 5, these are a different set of rents then, correct?
Yeah,
OFCs.
these are OFCs, yeah, because it's a bigger building.
Now, when you say C, OFC, this is the assessment department's own classification, isn't it?
Well, based on market evidence and information provided by others throughout the years.
Yeah, and how does this compare to the market's description?
In what way, Mr. Neufeld?
Well, the Johnson report, which I'm looking at in my hand right now, has different classifications, and I'm just wondering, how does the OFC compare to what we in private industry
OFC, as opposed to the property that we're looking later on with regards to 317 Donald, an OFC building is average to below average building quality, below average materials and finish, and 3 or more stories.
Okay.
Usually located in the downtown area. Right.
And what are the classifications below OFC? Do you have
It would be an OFD.
D, okay.
Which would be a downtown one. And so those OFDs would be the old downtown offices.
You don't have a D? You don't have a D for suburban then?
No.
Okay.
No.
And
because usually suburban are usually just 1 or 2 floors, sometimes 3, and that's a differentiation for that.
In regard to your rents in this table, you're describing these as Cs, and I'm just wondering, a couple of the nearby rents. So first of all, number 3, which is 491 Portage. This is a newer building. I think it's about 1980 construction. Is that not?
Yeah, it's but it's closer to downtown, so it's like right beside the U of W.
Right, and it's getting a $9 rent on a large space, correct? About the
Yeah,
same.
well, yeah,
It's smaller than the subject's space, right?
Yep.
Okay. 428 Portage, number 11, and this is 1948 construction. A small space at 960. Do you look at those rents?
Well, when we're looking at that per se, our blended rate, let me just calculate the blended rate here. It's not, we're not being unreasonable. It's not like we're asking for a $12 rent here. Like, and in fairness to rents, Mr. Neethel, you're asking for $9, and our blended rate for this building here. Our blended rate is $8.25, including the basement.
Including the basement. What's it without the basement? $10.15, isn't it?
Yep.
10.15. Okay, I'm just comparing apples to apples because none of these rents on your page 4 and 5 are basement rents, are they?
No, they're not.
Okay. And you've listed comp number 22, and we represent this property. You aware that this is a semi-gross building?
This is an owner-occupied building, Mr. Neufeld. In the mailers, they've
comparable
subject
number,
property
comparable number 22. I'm talking about. Are you aware that that is a semi-gross rent? And comparable number 25, also same building, 825 Sherbrooke.
Yeah, well,
based on
the information provided to us on the income and expense mailers, they're listed as being net rent.
Well, did you not? I'm assuming you weren't involved with it. Were you not aware of the recommendation made on 825 Sherbrooke earlier this year?
No, I wasn't a part of that discussion.
Okay. All right. Many of these other buildings, first of all, I had a question on another one here, which is a 1959 construction, 414 Graham. And that's comparable number 58. And I know it's in here, 18 and 19. You aware that that is an owner-occupied space, the tenant being 24/7 and the owner of the building is 24/7?
Well, no, but what I did notice here is I have some properties, 54 and 55 are at $12.
I'm asking a question about this space. Comparable 58, 18 and 19. Are you aware that's an owner-occupied rent?
Based on the information that they've provided us, so it may be an owner-occupied information, but based on the income and expense mailer provided to us, they say that it's a triple net rent.
I have it in front of me. They do not say that.
Well, the point is, I'm just basing it on the information.
Okay.
Everything that we do is, unless that's in your evidence, Mr. Neufeld, or is the lease that you're trying to talk about in your rebuttal evidence?
You know what? I'm asking questions. I'm asking if you're aware.
Well, I can't quantify. I can't answer your question because then it becomes potentially hearsay. Because you're saying something, I'm saying something.
No, I'm just asking you.
Unless it's your brief.
I think the world is aware who owns the building and occupies it. It was in the news, so it's in the public domain. If you're not aware of it, you're not aware. That's fine. I'll move on.
I'm not aware of it.
Okay, and the page 6. This was done by the model based on the premises we've already discussed. Then
that's correct.
Okay. And being at on page 7. This being in office, you don't seem to have a listing for OFC in office in your 20th and 80th percentile. Do you know what those numbers are?
No, I do not.
Okay. And of the 3 real estate companies listed here. To your knowledge, do any of them track buildings like this in terms
No,
of cap
because they're
rates?
like, as Mr. Neufeld said, usually OFCs aren't a part of investment sales. Usually it's higher end properties that are part of that information with regards to OFAs and Bs.
All right. Those are my questions. Unless Mr. Mercury has any.
Mr.
No
Mercury,
further
do you have any questions?
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard, do you have any questions?
I don't, thank you.
Val, any questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to Mr. Neufeld's report. Mr. Neufeld, you have the floor.
Thank you. So this is a 1928 building, and there have been no changes that would have altered that date, because the change you're looking for is restructuring, not interior alterations and repairs. And I'm fairly sure most people knew about them being flooded out of their building due to their malfunction. It was actually my job, and I was involved with looking at other sites for them. They ended up looking at relocating. I want to say somewhere near Arborg, but I can't recall. That was about 3 years ago, and different facilities. The use is clear what it's for. It's an older building, and we had looked at rents in the area, and page 3 is a partial listing of the ones we have, but the ones that I thought were probably the most pertinent were 83 Sherbrooke, and this is a multi-story, I believe it's 4 or 5 story building. It's newer construction, and the rents in there, based on the floor you occupied, were between $8.59 and $13.41. However, the one at $13.41 was the owner's space. He ran a pharmacy. So we essentially had a building, a superior building between $8.59 and $10.38. That was our strongest evidence of rental rates. I verbally could provide more, but I noticed we'd never put them in. There were some other ones on Sherbrooke we had, and some nearby on Portage. The issue with rents is that most of the ones on Portage tend to be strip malls and similar. There aren't a lot of these sort of properties. Older buildings being for lease. 428 Portage, although it's in the downtown, was a good example. The assessor brought some rents for it, and 491 Portage is another interesting example. That's the one attached to the bus station. 590 is not. So we came to a conclusion of $8 a foot for the upper floor being inferior, 1928 construction. We did not get a chance to inspect. This is a last minute inclusion after Shared Health assumed control of the real estate for Addictions Foundation. But we did have reports from the building and the operators to know that sort of condition we were looking at. In terms of vacancy, we did treat it as office, and what we try to do is stabilize these rates, and we use the Johnson report. And to be clear, this is all data came from before December 30th, 2020, and this was the most current. Mr. Johnson and I have been over this so many times. Every time we get this complaint from the assessor about data, I have this discussion with him to find out when his last date was. This is completely online. So the overall city rate was 9.9, and we had looked at the miscellaneous rate as well as the Class C rate. The person who wrote this wasn't really aware that this isn't Class C building. This is miscellaneous building, and the rates for that are slightly better than we use a blended between 9.9 and 20.20 at 15.05. But the miscellaneous rents are vacancy rate is actually 14.6. So it's really, really close. I'm not going to change that. This is a building to be expected to have high vacancy. This entire block has been government service and older buildings, which includes the two Addictions Foundation buildings, as well as the old driver's licensing at 1031, a part of a very old complex of government office, which are generally obsolete to begin with. You will note that our shortfall calculation is incredibly lower than the assessment department. So we're not cherry picking. We're not trying to argue one rate's better than the others. We're just looking at it as market. The reason why, because it's school exempt, so the taxes are lower, so it's less money to occupy. You know, if we took this down to a pure argument over rent, probably the vacancy and the shortfall would mitigate each other. So that's not the major issue. The major issue is the rent. We're $2 difference on it. As far as basement rents, we made a decision here, having not been in the building, that there may be some use to the basement. It was our assumption. We do track basement rents, and we did not include the table verbally. I can tell you they tend to range from 50 cents to $4, and we picked the midpoint, having not seen it. And we're not necessarily disagreeing with the assessor's number at 262. So that's not a point of contention. It's the $10 upper versus $8 upper. In terms of non-recoverables, well, you know, a building that's got flood damage, a building that's hit by a car, suffers a lot of non-recoverable costs. But non-recoverables are a constant. And on page 44 and 45 is our table. These are managed properties by Colliers, and they include industrial, office, and retail. The non-recoverable mean is 9.8. The median is 7.01. And you'll note that if you compare historical statements on properties, that they go up and they go down. Of interest are the ones at the top of page 44. We have 80 Sherbrooke, which I mentioned we had rents from, which we did not include, and we have 83 Sherbrooke. So their rates were 27.6 and 9.67. So it is a real issue. 912 Portage, which is a strip mall near the subject, virtually across the street, non-recoverables 12.84%. And these are professionally managed properties. And then 1375 Portage, 6.26%. So we're being very cognizant of the market. In terms of cap rate, yeah, nobody tracks these miscellaneous buildings, and we did a study of office sales, investment sales, listed on page somewhere here. Here we go, page 42. These were all the sales, office sales, all categories that occurred between the day the first restriction on COVID was announced and April 1st. There are no investment sales in here. They just were not selling. And this is very easy to understand. The market was so depressed that if people put their property on the market, they would not get a good price for it. So it's sit and wait, just pure common sense. And the point is, maybe over time it goes back up. But we're not out to capture stabilized rates over a 5-year window. We're trying to follow the Municipal Assessment Act, which established a 2-year window. In that 2-year window, we had a horrible performance in the office market. It went down. Next year, when it's reassessed, it'll probably go back up, because that's the nature of markets. A very interesting, funny thing, and I know this is part argument, not really. This is evidence. Commentary. A new appointee to the municipal board is Mr. Nelson Carpa, who's been working in Calgary. He's very familiar with this concept of up and down. Calgary has had this based on oil prices for decades. Oil prices down, values go down. Next year, they're back up, values go up. Manitoba has been insulated from this because we've had a mindset that things will only go up or stagnate, but never down. This is our first real major downturn in decades. And I don't think that the assessment department has captured this properly. Values should be going down, and based on our legislation. So 8.5 is our cap, and we do it based on a base of 6 for the best product, and then look at the deductions on it for quality. Now, location, and I mean nothing by this, but it's a bad location. The market doesn't want to be in Portage Avenue at this point. It's a transit, it's a flow through route. You're not getting people. I mean, when this whole block went on the market, 1031, 1071, 1041, the only interest were institutional users. The market has none whatsoever. All along Portage, and then going to 755, which we just heard, institutional users. So low demand in the market. The parking, they actually have a separate lot, which was heard separately, and but they don't have their own parking. You're in the suburbs. You're required to have parking. In this particular building, as an office use, you are required to have, I believe it's 32 stalls for building for bylaw. And if you look at the picture on page 1, it's very short of that number. And you can see the lot they have across the back lane has got another 9-10 stalls for their use. It's a legal non-conforming use, but on the market it's going to be treated as a deficiency. If you put it up for sale, as the Act defines, what would the probable price be between a willing seller and a willing buyer? That would hurt it. The basement is not seen as contributory in any way. The year built is now, we're getting back to our concept of effective year and year built. We break it down to 3 categories for year built, quality, and condition. You cannot change the year built, 1927. That is the base of everything. So I have a building that's 96 years old. Not a good investment sale. It's remaining economic life. That can be extended, but it's never permanently extended. You got a short lifespan, which drives a higher cap. Quality and condition, for its time, it was probably pretty good. Today, it's not. And when we talk about quality and condition, the issues to consider are, can you even find materials to fix what's wrong with the building? That front facade, which is carved stone, you're not finding craftsmen today to fix it. It's deficiency. You're going to have to replace the whole facade with some ugly modern thing if you had a problem. That's why we're rating it low in quality and condition. The income potential is clear. If it's only interest of use to institutional users, the market is not going to be responding with a typical response of taking the site and being desirable. So we did at 8.5%, and that's my presentation. And I remind you, we have not seen the building. It's a new. This was based on lack of observation. I think we're pretty competent. Of course we are. We're pretty comfortable that this presents a fair market value. I don't even think these have ever hit the board in the past at all. That's all my presentation.
Merrick, do you have some questions?
Okay, so Mr. Neufeld, so you haven't inspected this property, yet you asked me a lot of questions with regard to the interior finish of this property. So is your evidence presented here based on hearsay? Because you haven't provided pictures and you haven't inspected this property. So how do we not know that this property is not in better condition that you're stating that it's in?
Well, two-part question. I asked you questions regarding permits, and I'm looking at the permits in front of me. And we had a fair amount of information about the damages on this building. Second part of that question is I report to Shared Health, who managed the property, and they have a file on it. So we did have a review of the file in terms of the costs to maintain it, which are are fairly high, that they are not typical. For example, your page 12 speaks quite loudly to the problems with the building in terms of condition. 60, I don't know what that number is,
Page
68,000.
12. My 12 is income expense mailer.
Yeah, 68,000 a year in maintenance and repair. That's pretty heavy. Utility costs that are looks to be about $50,000 a year. So you're running $1.60 a foot, a little on the high side. So that indicates thermal loss. You should be running closer to $1. And then the insurance cost to carry. So that's going to be about 70 cents a foot. Buildings that are better built buildings, and now we're talking about fire safety equipment and everything that's installed, would generally be running anywhere from 30 to 50 cents a foot. These are the things that tell me that we have some condition issues.
So you mentioned insurance here for this property. With regards to someone driving into the property, with regards to the flooding in the basement, wouldn't have that been covered by insurance?
You know what? I don't know. And I mean, I don't think it's relevant to the value, but
Well, you talked about expenses of the building. You're referencing in that, and then but
what
usually if
happened,
there's
it happened in 2013. So it did happen 10 years ago. And the reason for bringing it up was in response to your comment that all these permits happened. Repair permits was the point I'm making there. I'm not talking about anything else but that.
well, the flooding was in 2020.
2019.
Okay, based on what I see in front of me. No other questions. Thank you.
Richard, any questions?
I don't have any, thank you.
Val, any questions?
No, thank you.
Rocky, does this building have, yeah, it has an elevator, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I was looking at the pictures. It looks like an elevator building on the penthouse. And I'm making the assumption it does because it was a government services building, and but then when you look at the maintenance and repair costs, there's no allocation for elevator service. And being a provincial building, they got a very funny way of expensing elevator. So I don't see it here.
I'm just getting that you're trying to get this building back to 1928. I'm having a hard time with that, Mr. Neufeld, because do you think those windows are 1928?
No, I think the windows were changed at some point. There are 5 elements to consider on the age of a building: the framing, the foundation, the envelope, the mechanical, and the finish.
Okay.
So we see part of the
explain to me the mechanical then. What's in the mechanical?
the mechanical is going to be heating, cooling systems, elevators, plumbing, electrical. So it's a fair bet that the electrical was redone, because most all buildings had to have been redone. Plumbing, I haven't inspected. It could still be cast pipes, and I'm sure there's no lead in there. One way of determining a plumbing change is to look at the ceiling to see if they're still using rooftop drains. You know how they used to what you did is your snow melted and went down the middle, and that tells you if you've had a plumbing change. I'm gonna just look at a better picture of that.
Yeah, because I see a modern HVAC unit on top, and it doesn't seem to be the case there, Mr. Neufeld.
No, I'm talking about drainage.
Yeah, well, no, but I don't see what you're trying to talk about. There's capping on the center part of the roof, like for the roof that they have up on top there.
Yeah, there is rooftop equipment, so that's an air conditioner unit. So I don't know if they're running with a split system boiler and heat for heat and a rooftop for air. A very common conversion.
But your
the-
company is, your company is managing it, correct?
no, we've got no involvement whatsoever in it. It's my client is Shared Health. We manage actually some of their properties, not this one. This one is internal. So going back to the window question, side picture, we have the frame. Some windows have been done, some windows are original glass cube. Brick exterior is original, stone is original. So the envelope changes would have been to the window. Front door looks like it was redone with aluminum frame at some point. No change to the facade. And we know there's been no change to the framing or the foundation. So that's, I mean, and the mechanical, there's been, appears to be the HVAC upgrade add-on. I believe it's probably still running on the boiler system with that, because that's a very small HVAC unit on the roof. So I would be assuming it's like a split system. None of this is really making the building younger, because it's just it's like your house, when you have a problem with your garage door, you replace the garage door and you say, okay, I've just improved my remaining economic life. A lot of this is just replaceable items. You're going to go through some mechanical systems. I can't comment on it further without doing an inspection, but the bottom line is, if you've got elements of a building, the primary elements, the framing, the foundation, the majority of the envelope are vintage. You don't change the date to say that improved your remaining economic life, because you can't, you haven't done it. I don't think there's ever been a case where I've seen a building that's been reframed. Actually, that's not true. I have seen one. But this concept of effective year built is something that should be quantified by professionals, not by and I'm including me in this, an amateur. I'm an amateur at this. The assessor's an amateur. The assessment department's an amateur, because we need an engineer's report. And we engage these people all the time as experts. The interesting sideline business that's starting is that all municipalities now want condition reports on their buildings, and we get the jobs. We hire an engineer to do the work, to determine how many years they've got left in it. And it happens, but on the level we're discussing, there's no depth to it. There's no proof of it. It's pure speculation. The scuppers, that's what I was looking at here. I was trying to see if they're scuppers, so we got the right term. I'm looking at the outside to see for drain outlets. No, they're still draining through the rooftop. So that would suggest to me that we're probably looking at a combination of cast and PVC, possible PVC piping, probably cast for that drainage from the roof.
And then I got one further question, I'm afraid.
I see the new electrical line being put in, so we know service has been altered. And there's some conduit on the outside too.
Yeah. So going all the way back to 1928 might be pushing it, is what I'm saying.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that's too glib of an answer to just say it's 1928.
That's what you.
No.
What's your answer?
I think it's too glib of an answer to say it's 1928 or it's 1970. That it's a building that, my answer is we break it down into 3 categories: year built, 0; quality and condition, take it from there.
But you're not giving us quality and condition. There's no pictures. You don't know the quality because you haven't been in it.
You know, like most buildings, we do get to look at the reports from the operators and the financials, and yeah, you're correct. A lot of it is our experience and our assumptions on it. But we speak it, as the assessor was trying to suggest, it is not hearsay. It is building reports. We're outside my door. I mean, we don't manage it, but we manage hundreds of buildings, and so this is a business that we're aware of, and we know how it works. It's a point of concern here is when the sprinklers burst in 2019, it took them 2 years to get it back in operation. To me, that suggests a very bad building. It shouldn't have taken 2 years. And that's not because they were rebuilding the frame or anything in it. They were dealing with very old building materials that had delays in fixing.
Okay, I'll leave it at that. Anything in summation, gentlemen?
No, your questioning, Mr. Larondo, raised the same concerns that I had. Thank you.
Nothing else from you, Rocky?
Yes, just one last thing. The building, as we've talked about, is how do you get it back to 1928, and how do you say it's 1970 today? And what I did forget to bring up is that it's registered on the heritage list. So they can't bring it to 1970 because they're registered, they can't change it. And yes, there is a freight elevator. There are elevators in the building. Okay.
All done?
Yes.
That will conclude that matter for now. And we'll move on to item number 4, which is 317 Donald. Anybody want to take a break?
Yeah, please.
Have a break, please.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. We're going to take a recess. Thank you. We'll call the meeting back to order. Merrick, when you're ready on 317 Donald, read it in, please.
Yep. File number is 22-3269. Address is 317 Donald Street. The assessed value that we have for this property is $15,511,000. Property was built in 2005. It's located on Portage Avenue on Portage and Donald, just in between on Donald between Portage and Ellis. Built in 2005. We have a leasable area of 81,064. There is indoor parking for this property of 60 feet. And one of the themes that we'll be discussing on this property with regards to, we class this as an OFB and the agent classes this as an OFC. With that being forward, I had reached out trying to do some case management ahead of time because there are some outstanding municipal board appeals for this in 2020 and 2018. In 2020, the value was 15.5 million. It was cut to 9.1. That's a City of Winnipeg appeal. In 2018, the value was 16.7 or 16.8, cut to 15.5. 2016, 15.6 to 14. There was the applicant appealed in 2018, no appeal in 2020, and in 2014 the value was 14, and there was a COA signed at 13.8. I have not inspected this property, but some of my colleagues have in the past, and you're probably familiar with the building on the top of page 2 and its location on page on 1 and 2. What I've done purposely is I excluded pictures that I knew that Mr. Neufeld was going to include in his brief. So I wanted to make sure that I conveyed the message here that this is a quality building here. There are parts of this building that are not as great, but based on the pictures that we have on file, parts of this building could almost be an OFA related building as opposed to the OFB status. On the top of page 3, you could see the lobby area. We have a rent of $15.45. In the past, the agent has asked for $8.50 for this property, which is a bone of contention with the city of Winnipeg, which is why it's at the municipal board. On page 3, we have additional, on the bottom of page 3, we have some office areas, the hallway. And on the bottom of page 4 is a second floor finish. So in our eyes, even though the rental rates have
You're breaking up on us.
changed, we believe this is an OFB property with higher market between the
Merrick, is that your system that's breaking
change
down or
just
mine?
underfoot, and I think did I lose you?
You're locked
Can
up
you still hear me?
once in a while.
Hello?
Yeah, once in a while we hear you and you're breaking up. We've had the same face now for the past 30 seconds already.
Hi there, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. So I don't know where it ended up, but in the previous appeal, the rent was a lot lower than the just under $15 rental rate that we have for this property. This property was built in 2005, and the finish shows a 2005 building here. So we do have pictures on file. This is not an OFC property in the city of Winnipeg's assessment. Page 5 is on the bottom of page 5 is the normal office area, and at the top of page 5 looks like some sort of lunchroom, I'm guessing. Page 6 shows some additional pictures with regards to the quality of the finish for the building. And this property has indoor parking for 60 spots. There's not any OFC properties out there that have indoor parking. And so, which is why we have it listed as an OFB, because obviously that's a tangible benefit for all the people who work in the building. Property owner has been compliant with regards to completing income and expense mailers for this property. And the first part that we show here is the parking structure. We have 60 stalls, indoor parking at $103.50 a square foot, using a 7% cap rate, adds $1,065,000 to the property value. On the bottom of page 8, we have a list of all the parking structures that are within the city of Winnipeg, ones that are in downtown area. With regards to Fork is at 120, 136 McDermott, 114, 135. I feel very comfortable with the rents that we're using for the parking stalls. In 2020, and I think in the 2018, the agent placed no value on parking. And so what I'm showing here on page 9 is just print screens from the 2020 mailer showing that they are showing a gross parking rent of $136,311. And then subsequently from the 2017 mailer that was, from the 2017 mailer that was used for the 2020, showing a parking rent of $126,822. On page 10 was a copy of the brief presented by the agent with regards to the value of his property. What we're noticing here is he's using the owner's space at $8.50 on 30,000 square feet. And I've clearly shown like the 4th floor of that building is not an $8.50 rent. The rent that we have in place on the mailer is higher than that. But parts of this building is owner occupied. But that's just an overview of what happened in page 10. And the value ended up being cut to $9.1 million or so. And in page 11, what I'm showing from the 2020 appeal, similar situation with regards to the rent. There's no added parking income for this property. And then subsequently, there is parking rent from the 2015 mailer on the bottom of page 7, showing $97,500. We have this property listed as an OFB quality. And just to go over the classification of office properties, we define an OFB building to be average to good building quality, average materials and finishes, predominantly located in the downtown area, maybe an older building that has once been classified as an OFA, and 3 or more stories. So that's why we have this classified as an OFB property. We are comfortable with regards to the OFB property. It has indoor parking. That's a huge benefit. So with that being said, what we have here is we have a list of all of our rents that we have for the different quality spaces here. And let me just quickly do some math here. 472 divided by 81,063. Yeah, our blended rent is $15.46. So it's a bit higher than I had stated before, and I apologize for that. Using 11% vacancy loss, effective gross income of $115,590, expenses at 3%, shortfall at $12, which is higher than an OFC shortfall. We come up with $975,119, utilizing a 6.75% cap rate. We come up with a value of $14,446,000. City of Winnipeg has spent a lot of time and effort doing an OFB report with regards to the market study. There's an overview of this information that you've seen before. But for me, what's important about this documentation here is that the ranges that we have here are between $13 to $16 for the majority of the properties. And the one rents that are very, very low are the ones that the $11.75 would be on the lower end of the scale. And from my perspective, the quality, it's a newer building, it's a newer OFB. The rents that are shown on the income expense mailers are reflective of that. And I feel comfortable with the rents that we've used. With that being said, I was open to negotiations with regards to getting rid of the 2020 and 2018 appeal for this property. So OFB shows the information from Cushman and Wakefield, the Johnson report, and a list of all the other OFBs that we have on St. Mary's, on Graham, Portage Avenue, all in the same vicinity. A lot of data on 17, 18, and 19, and then page 20. So what we've done here, because this was brought up during the case management for negotiation purposes, is that we've been told that this building has had a lot of history with regards to vacancy. And so what I've done, I presented here information from all the income and expense mailers. And what's interesting here is that the actual vacancy was very high in 2006, 2007, I guess shortly after the property was built. And then subsequently they had a blip in 2015 where their vacancy was high. And at that time, they did end up taking a new client at a very, very low rent. And so I believe a business decision was made there, not based on market evidence. And, we always say one sale doesn't establish market value. One market rent doesn't establish market property rent for the entire property cycle. And I believe a decision was made based on vacancy on one cycle. So now on page 20, we're looking at the actual rents in place here. So the credit union has a rent reported at $15.45. The building it's a number company, but I do believe it's owned by the credit union. Other rents that we have here at $14.10. Then we got a small amount of vacancy here, which is consistent. So if you look at the vacant spaces here of 1,427 and 5,015, we have a vacancy in 2020 of 7.95%. And the other spaces that we have here, after the one on the second floor, which I showed a picture of at $13.85, we have a space here at $8.75 at $16,000, which is the very low rent that we're saying here, because there's always going to be outliers in buildings some days, and the rents that we're using for this building do not seem to be unreasonable. And the Winnipeg Civics Credit Union Benefit Program, they're paying $15.80. So during my analysis, I was trying to find information to see if there's any current vacancy prior to April 1st, 2020, and I didn't come across any information. Here's the information from the 2013 mailer, that the experience that they did have, and they were looking for space at the time. So in 2013, they had a vacancy issue of 2,600 square feet and 3,500 square feet, and they were looking for a rent of $15.50 and $12. There's some additional pictures for this property. I didn't realize they had a second floor patio there with a lunch area, which is very nice, on the left-hand side of page 21. Looking at the information here right now with regards to the summary page, just showing the breakdown with regards to the parking stream and the OFB portion to come out with the 15,511,000. We have our cap rate study that's been discussed quite a bit. What I've also included here is I've included some post decisions that have taken place. Mr. Laurando, you're in charge of this property here. You did this in 2024. So the value was 15.5 million in 2020. It was cut to 9,145,000. It was based on the applicant's evidence and 8.5%. Subsequently, on page 26, we were looking at a 2014 municipal board appeal where the value was at 14 million and now it was cut to like 13.7. And there's some information with regards to the decision on page 27. Income and expense mailer. So looking at the information, I've included bits and pieces from the last cycle just to bring closer relevance to it. But just as an overall view of it, I will start my presentation on the mailer on page 34. Is everyone there?
Yep.
So on page 34, we're showing the base potential rent of $1.1 million, parking at $136,000, and storage rent at just under $9,000. We're showing recovery revenue that they're getting for the camp costs. We're also showing they've taken out the vacancy with regards to how the vacancy has affected the building at like 181,760. We got some utility expenses here. The parking lot, building exterior, janitorial sides. The one question that I came across on page 36, almost 2/3 of the way down, is that the property tax appeal was $75,965 as an expense. So I'm not too sure how that ends up working out, but it's something that, you know, whenever you see something that seems a bit high, you know, I thought it was really unique and distinctive. And on page 37, just some more that I think I did this twice on page 37. I don't think I deleted it. And on page 39 is just a better picture with regards to the rents. So showing on the top of page 39, the rent that they have listed here at $15.45. Then we have the space here on the first floor of $14.10. And what's interesting about that space here, based on what I've been told, because I haven't inspected this property, where this is the space, this is where they have all the cages where they've received money. And so the quality of finish in this space here of 681 square feet is not the same quality finish of the 24,461. And you'll see pictures of that in Mr. Neufeld's brief. Then we have the vacancy information and just an overview of the 1385, the $8.75 that was signed in 2017. And subsequently, the Civic Credit Union lease, which has been there for a very long period of time at $15.80. With regards to actual building performance, the vacancy on page 40 is showing 7.95%, and I believe our vacancy is 11%. That concludes my presentation, and I am open to questions.
Mr. Neufeld. Rocky, you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Starting on page 1, you have a leasable area of 81,064, and I noticed that the mailer has a different number of 80,000. Sorry, I'm just looking for it here on page 40, 80,985.
Yeah, I'm not too sure why there's a discrepancy here on that. Let me just double check here. But yeah, so yep, I am mine. And so what had happened here, let me just double check. Yeah, that's been a mistake from the last cycle as well, from 2020. In 2020, we had 81,064. So I'm not too sure where the discrepancy is, but you are correct with that discrepancy. And in the big picture, it is.
It's not a lot of space. I just wanted
It's
to.
not significant. It's less than 200 square feet.
Less than 100 square feet.
Yeah.
79.
So we're almost at 81,000. Yeah, so it's okay. Sorry, and those sort of discrepancies. I was more concerned it was higher. It was higher. I know on the next property that we're dealing with, there was an issue with regards to our square footage used, but I think we're being reasonable with this one.
Okay, but it is still an error. That's my only issue, correct?
Yeah, to be off 150 square feet on a 81,000 square foot building could easily happen.
Sure, I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just wondering, should we not be using the actual square footage? At least,
You know what? If you want, Mr. Newfield, I could make a recommendation using the actual square footage.
well, just a question now. Should we not be using the actual?
You are correct. Yes.
Okay. Now on page 7, you provide a sale. Are you familiar with the conditions of that sale?
You know what? It's sort of funny because I asked the previous assessor who looked at it. It's so far away from the reference date. You're dealing with 14 years, so I have no information on that sale.
Okay. I take it you're not relying on it then?
No.
Okay. And the calculation made at the top of page 8 for parking, and then on that's for the parking, and the other one on the building, which is on page 22, the summary. Can we assume that's all from the model?
Yeah, it's all model generated.
Okay. And it is based on your B class then? Is that what you said?
That's what I've said. Yeah.
Or sorry, that was stated what page?
Our workup on page 12.
Okay, yeah, I see. OFB, that's B class. Okay. And there, just confirm that there is a difference in value between C class and B class in your model, is there not?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Where it affects vacancy, shortfall, and cap rate.
Okay. And these pictures that are in here, were you in the building?
I've never been in this building.
Okay, so these were done by a previous assessor then, I take it.
That is correct.
Okay. You made a statement regarding the offering for sale for lease, and that was on page 21. Just clarify that was offered for lease in 2013.
Yes.
Okay.
I was not able to find any like if you look at the vacancy report that I've included in 2000 from 2019 to 2016, vacancy was less than 2%.
Okay.
And then
that's not what I'm asking. So just clarify. I just wanted the date clarified. And then on it, there's asking rates between one's at units at $12 and the others at $15.50. Now, do you know when that space was leased?
well, looking at the mailer, what they've reported, there's conflicting information because on the mailer they reported 1.76 to us. However, if you look at the 2020 lease,
Okay, I'll just speed this up here.
because like if you look at the 2020 lease,
That says
it was signed in 2017.
the units being offered for sale were unit 300 and 320, correct?
Yes.
And on your page 39, we have unit 300, which ended up being leased in 2017 or 4 years later. Well, what happened in the intervening 4 years? Do you know?
Well, the point is, I don't know. All I'm basing my information on is what they provided us in the mailer.
No,
And they've provided us in the mailer, so maybe they were using that space. I'm not familiar with it, you know, at that time. But the
sure.
point,
I just want to know what you know, not what you're guessing. So you're approximately 6,000 square feet offered for lease in 2013, and in 2017, your statement is 16,000 was leased, including that space, 4 years afterwards. Then, correct?
based on the 2020 mailer.
Yeah. Okay. And no, any issues with the lease, that particular lease as being a non-arm's length? Are you aware of anything?
We base all of our information provided us on the income and expense mailer.
So you have no information that would suggest that it is not an arm's length transaction?
I've answered the question.
I was just looking for a yes or no.
Well,
Do you have any information?
I have no information, Mr. Newfield.
Oh, thank you. And then we have some older leases, the unit 500, and that dates back to 2009, correct?
Well,
I'm looking at page 39 again.
yeah, on page 500, that's the Civics Credit Union space.
Okay. And you are
And
aware
they've been there
that,
since 2009.
right now, and you are aware that the other occupants are all affiliated with Credit Union Central? I believe your
You know,
department is aware of
we-
it. I don't know if you are. Are you aware?
I'm not aware of it. I'm basing all of my information on the income and expense mailer.
Okay, all right. You had mentioned that you had stated that the vacancy only existed for one cycle, but isn't it clear from the statements that from the time it was offered for lease in 2013, 4 years had elapsed before it actually got rented?
Well, that's interesting because well, as you've stated here, if it's all a part of Credit Union Central, and if they've only reported on my brief where they have vacancy of 1.76%, maybe they were using their space. I'm only speculating because we base all of our information on what's been provided to us. And so on page 20, I went through a detailed analysis, and this was work that was done for the municipal board appeal as well, is that, you know, they're showing a vacancy, you know, during the years of 2014 at 7.4%. And then all this, you know, then
Yeah, okay. No, but I think you've said where your source is. I was just wondering, do you have any other information other than that? Did you at any point ask the owner or the listing agent any more information?
No, I did not.
Okay. And in on your page 1 where you had a history stated, the reference here for each of these is 2 years in arrears, correct?
Minus the 2023.
Right, like you said, the 2014 value, that's for the market year 2012, correct?
Using the 2011 mailer.
And the 2016 value would be 2014 values, correct?
Using the 2013 mailer.
Yeah. So 2018, same question would be from the 2016 values. And
That's correct.
And since you put these in, were you not aware that the putting the space on the market in 2013 was the trigger for a decline in value that sought us relief at the municipal board?
When it came to the
At that point, it had been on the market for 3 years. You're not. I know you've been involved in discussions, and we've made it clear, both in privately and in boards, that this was the trigger.
Well, this is the first time I've ever taken this property at a board of revision appeal, and like I had stated before, you know, we make decisions based on information provided to us by the owner occupied. As you've asked many questions before, this is a model generated rent. This is a model generated, vacancy analysis that we've done here. And so with regards to the information that I've stated here with regards to the 2023 evaluation, I feel comfortable with the value that I presented here.
And
is there room for tweaking? Of course there's room for tweaking, but the point is the cut that had taken place in 2020 is not reflective of what we believe to be market conditions.
now the eventual lease of this third floor space, the initial lease offering was through Colliers. Do you know who the agent was who finally did the deal for it?
This is the first time I've ever presented this property, and I have no information with regards to that.
Well, okay, well, you found that obviously online, so I'm just wondering if you found
The 2013 was in a previous brief. I think that was in the 2016 brief that we had.
I see. So you're not aware that there was a change in brokerage firms, correct?
I can't answer that question because I don't know the answer to that question.
All right. All right. Sorry, I'm just out of order here. Okay, carrying on here. The information you have on the property income, which would be in the mailers, pages, looks like page 34 and up to page, I'm guessing
40.
to page 40. So I was just wondering here on pages 39 and 40, sorry, specifically 40, there's a base rent listed and then there's parking rent. And that is coded PMT. Do you see that on page 40?
Parking rec commercial, yeah, 137.
The coding is PMT, and that's
with an amount of 137,195,
right,
which is consistent, which is very close to the parking rent on page 34 of 136,311.
Okay, now, but that coding is also included in the rent rolls on page 39, correct? You see the PMT listed?
Yep.
Okay, so when the property is parking is offered, then it's to the tenants of the building, correct? There's no outside parking here.
There's no outside parking, no.
And you're not going to get people parking for the jets. It's closed for the users only, then, correct?
It's my understanding that is. Well, I know there's no general parking there.
Okay, and on your pictures, I just want to see if you've got the picture here. No, you don't. The use of the building by Credit Union Central, are you aware what it was?
I'm just looking at the bricks and mortar of that building. I don't know a lot of the previous history with regards to what it was. But what I've been told, I think the first floor was where they brought in all the money. I don't know if that's true or not. So I can't really comment on that because that's the business operations. I'm looking at the bricks and mortars of the building. I don't know a lot of information about the tenants.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just about done here. Don't worry. This workup that you presented to the board, just to be clear on this, you had a history of vacancy, page 20. This all came from the mailer, right?
Yes.
So if the owner, who was the major tenant, had space available, you would not have picked it up, would you?
Well, we assume that the owner is providing us good information, and what ends up happening, like you've stated this in one way or another, you've stated that they may have been using that space for different reasons. but we don't know what ends up happening. So the only way we could, we base our information on is that, what they provide us.
Yes,
You know,
but
we're you know, because I find it funny that you find it interesting that for every property in the city of Winnipeg, you want us to make a phone call and follow up on all the specifics with regards to the properties, and like it's like we get the
no,
mail.
that's
We trust what property owners give us, unless
Okay,
there's a reason for us not to have it.
I'm trying to ask simple questions here, and that was if you were you're not aware of when space was no longer needed by the owner and was being offered.
And I
Then
think I've answered that.
what was your answer? Yes, no, you're not aware. You got no way of tracking that, do you?
No, how are we supposed to track that if we only track vacancy by what they provide us on the income expense mailers?
Okay, that's fine.
Mr. Chairperson, I feel that these questions are redundant.
And then I'm just looking to see if you, oh yes, now you've listed some, I guess there's studies or workups by somebody, and you're calling page 18, OFB Johnson report data.
Yep.
Now, two buildings in particular at the bottom, 333 Main and 191 Pioneer are listed as having no vacancy. Do you see that?
On page 18 or 19?
18.
18. And the years are for 2015 and 2016.
Right. Now, on those particular buildings, and I'm looking at the Johnson report right now. First of all, are you aware that that they were fully leased or are fully leased to MTS?
Well, I do believe 33 Main Street was, you know, I can't say with confidence. I didn't make this report. This is information that we have.
No, I understand, and I'm just trying to look at this issue of owner occupied buildings. You've got Main and Pioneer listed at 0% in this workup, and then in 2017, the vacancies are listed in Johnson. So this
I think the comments on the side or the comments that we have for the ones that are advertised. Yeah, the default position on these, Mr. Neufeld, is that we're basing our vacancy analysis based on what they provide us with the income expense mailers.
Right, but these two properties, they continue to list no availabilities except 6,700 square feet in 33 Main as you go through these listings in Johnson, correct?
And what year are you referencing? Yeah.
All the years, and we can go all the way up to page 19.
Okay. I won't be able to, Mr. Chairperson, I won't be able to answer any detailed questions about this report. It's a general guideline to show the trend with regards to the market rents for OFBs. Anything more specific than that, I won't be able to answer.
So no, that's fine, and I will ask you on the basis of your knowledge of it only, and you can respond that way. But I have that particular Johnson report in my hand, and 333 Main, for example, lists 46,320 square feet of space available in another area. Why didn't your report catch that?
I think I've answered the question with regards to the details of the report.
Is it because that it was all a one user building and you don't track that?
Asked and answered, Mr. Chairperson.
No, do you have, sorry, then let's be clear. You don't know the answer.
Mr. Neufeld.
Do you know
like
the
I've
answer?
Stated that I don't know that. So
okay, that's all. That's all.
Not being efficient with our time here, Mr. Neufeld.
I'm happy.
Gentlemen.
You didn't know.
Good. Let's be happy and ask questions.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Richard, do you have any questions?
I don't, thanks.
Val, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. At this time, is the building fully leased up?
Well, based on the 2020 mailer
Yeah,
that we're looking at, there was like 7% vacancy in 2020.
7%. Okay.
You know, we're using 11%. Yeah, you got 7.95%.
And what was
which
the
is
previous?
consistent with them.
What was the previous year for 2019?
They've reported 1.76 from 2016 to 2019.
What did they say? The percentage?
1.76%. Hey, Mr. Neufeld, I think I found our mistake here with regards to the leasable area.
Mm.
So the reconfiguration of the building from 2006 to 2011 or 2006 to 2015 was 81,063. So that change, and now that I look at it here, 35, it's like 50 square feet difference. But okay, no.
Can I get my question now?
Sorry, Mr. No, sorry, I just, you know, when you find something, I got all excited, Mr. Laurando. I apologize.
I saw that. I saw the excitement in your eyes.
Well, you know, you got to find your moments.
So when was it not leased? What years were was the big vacancy?
They've reported the 2015 mailer where they, you know, well, they had vacancy from on page 20.
Yeah.
My brief of 7.41% from 2011 to 2013, 2014. Then they had that one blip in 2015.
Yeah, that went up to
23%. Then it went back to 1.76%.
In what year?
2016. They've only reported 1 year significant vacancy.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you very much. Mr. Neufeld, if you can go on with your presentation, please.
Yeah, just one second here. In response to questions I asked the assessor, I have a very small piece of rebuttal information I'm just filing. I don't want to beat this thing to death, but I don't like the direction that the conversation is taking. So I'll just let me just give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to send it in.
And when did you want to deal with this rebuttal?
At any
is this
any
new
time.
information? Because if there's two issues here, it's new information. It's away from the due date. You know, like without being mindful of the time constraints, I can't do a detailed analysis of the information that's been provided to us. I had a situation recently that Mr. Neufeld presented a lease where, after reviewing the lease under a non-stressful situation, it made me believe that I don't know, that I was led astray.
Well, regardless of the assessor's concerns, he said something verbally that I wasn't prepared for. So, and I think it's incorrect, and I do get the opportunity to respond to that, and we're not going to debate it forever. I just like things to be clear and get it right. So sorry, I was just typing this in here, and I'll send this and then move on. Okay, to my present. Well, we were done with questions. Is it my turn?
Your turn.
Okay. Okay. And so the building has had an interesting history. It was originally built by Shindeco on a leaseback situation and leased to Credit Union Central back in 2005. They exercised their buyout right in 2007, and because they wanted to be an owner-operator, they didn't want to be leasing this anymore. It's a very interesting negotiation on it. Not a market value situation. It was a penalty situation, just to put that in perspective. But the big issue when you go back in time is the design. There was never any cash going in this building. It was a check clearance facility. So in the old days, when everything was paper and we had checks, all credit union checks were sent here, received on the first floor, processed on the other floors, and then the participating banks they would send their couriers to the banks, to the other credit unions, and they would do what they needed to do for fund transfer. So those are the old days. Remember when you bring in a check and how many days to clear? That's where the check was sitting. With modernization, it's completely obsolete anymore. There's no reason for it. The credit unions, the banks aren't doing paper storage anymore for this sort of thing. It's all electronic, and any other storage that they do that's paper goes to secure locations. Those are the ones that they have to store with paper. But again, we're probably all at the age when you remember you walking into your bank and saying, "Hey, this guy sent me a check." And they would go to the back and they pull a file out and, oh, here's the signature card. Oh, here's a paper of the account balance, et cetera, et cetera. So all that's gone, and it's electronics. As a result, the use for this building disappeared. Credit Union Central, when it started its life, wanted the whole building, and as this became apparent, they began trying to lease parts of it out. They were fortunate in 2009 to secure a tenant for the fifth floor, the Winnipeg Civic Employees Benefits Program, and the rent we're not disputing was $15.80 a square foot. So that comes right out of Merrick's pension. My joke. But after that, it became tougher. Now, in 2013, the assessor brought out a brochure by Bob Boris, who sits a few feet away from me. And Bob had the listing for 2 years, could not attract a single user. And he was at $12 a foot. Now, his mandate was to list these 2 spaces, but he had the opportunity to lease 2 floors. It was to put, nobody likes to put on the market how desperate we are. It was to get the prospects in and to try to develop it. But at that time, 2 floors from credit union were available. Now, they responded in 15 by bringing Solero into the building. And Solero they own Solero. It's data processing at $13.85. So that took 1 floor off the market. They still had more floors to deal with. The next time that they got the tenant was for CCA, commercial credit adjusters, and that's the rebuttal I sent in. So Bob was doing a diligent job, absolutely no interest. We discussed it many times, not hearsay. We were trying the marketing, couldn't get any interest. And this is a sad thing, but this is the truth. You would get a tenant interested in it. You would do a tour of the building. They saw a giant tiger virtually next door, and they said, "No, I think we're moving elsewhere." The dollar store on one side, giant tiger on the other side. It's not a desirable part of town, even though it's separated from new places like True North by only 3 blocks. But this is the market resistance we got. So Cushman got the leasing in 2015. They dropped their asking rate to $10. First bite they had was CCA in 2017. They signed at $8.75. Now, the only fortunate thing about it is that the credit union wasn't interested in doing tenant improvement allowances. So this is a clean lease at $8.75. And since then, credit union moved in the cooperative association for a couple of feet. Their own space that they're controlling, the entire space they're controlling, is about 40,000 square feet. And the last conversations we had with them is we're interested in anything. The building is not serving a function for them anymore. Main floor is set up as a data intake, which is basic finish. So it's not good finish, and the upper floors are basic office with the tenant being responsible for whatever improvements they'd like to make. You've seen the pictures. This is not a first-class building. The Johnson report, which agrees with our Collier's own reports, calls this a Class C, and that's in our evidence. The reason being, that it's not desirable. I mean, we've had professionals from the two major Winnipeg commercial realtors trying to market this building, and it does not have the interest. It falls in just some other Class C, and this is all on my page. I don't think it's very legible. Pages 2021 is where it's listed, 317 Donald, so it fits in with 5 buildings on Broadway, the Fort Garry, the one behind the Hotel Fort Garry, some of the older buildings on Lombard, Canadian Wheat Board, and the other buildings listed. It's professional opinion that's where this fits in, and what it lacks in amenities, of course, is location deficient. It's not on the skywalk. It has no food services of any sort, nor connection to one without going outside, which is a major factor. You could have a very similar building to 317 Donald attached to the skywalk system, and you could probably get it as a Class B, but it isn't. We have probably the dominant share of the market of office downtown leasing, and there's nothing we can do with it. We can lease out all sorts of other buildings. The Bs, they're easier, they're connected, but not this particular one. An interesting point when I look at this, I've given you the entire listing is pages, is I'm just looking for yes, on that same page, by the way, page 21, I'd mentioned about 333 Main, which is an MTS leasing the whole building, and there's the 46,000 square feet right at in the middle of the page. MTS controls it, and they're putting it on the market as a sublease. So when the assessor brings up his calculations, he's not catching that sublease market. And in this case, though, I wouldn't call credit union as offering a sublease because they're the owner. They're taking the space. It's on their books. They're not using it. Today, if you went through it, I think you'd probably find about 1.5 floors being occupied by their people, and the rest just sitting there vacant and available for use. The rebuttal material shows the most recent activity, and what's of interest there is when the assessor said, "Oh, they're only trying to lease this space." The new lease is pretty clear that there's a lot of flexibility on what's to be offered, available immediately, up to 16,000 feet, and asking $10 for it, and 13 on the third. So that highlights, and the 13 they got 875. So what we thought on doing the valuation, there was a lot of issues on it, and what we decided to do was to look at the actual closed lease that was done at 875, and consider this as an indication of the desirability of the owner's space. We're using the owner's space then at $10. And it's larger, and it's comparable to the CCA rate, which might be a bit higher than it could be. And then we're taking the other rents and using them as they were negotiated in 2013 non-arm's length with Solero, and 2009 arm's length with Winnipeg Civic Credit Union. And then the small Manitoba Co-op non-arm's length, it was at 14. That's what we're using. Just adjusted the rents downwards. Now, all of these rents include parking in their deals, lease by lease. And we provided the leases to the assessor numerous times, and they'll say right in there, this is the lease, this is how much parking you get. That's why we didn't put any parking income in it. Those are the leases with parking. If there's, and it's being a closed building, if you don't have tenants who want parking, you're not putting outside people in. The vacancy rate we've selected is Johnson. So the city rate is 9.9, but Class C, which the Johnson classifies this at, is 20.2. We just use the midpoint of that. This, I told you before, we had the incorrect application for 1031 Portage. This is the correct application. So that would be 15%. And that's very, very definitive of Class C. And you have transparency here because we've given you the data on it on page whatever the heck this was, page 20 21 22 20, sorry, 21. So we do have the samples and the actuals done by a third party, and reflecting, as we said it earlier, there are the owner occupied buildings, and now you'll notice in their listing of Donald on our page 21 that they're not listing any vacancy as of being available. They have the square footage wrong too, but that's the point with being controlled by the ownership. Ownership wasn't reporting to them, but the agents all knew, as we've given you two examples. They've gone out to the market to do it. Going back to the first concept altogether was the idea that we had a building that was designed for a specific use and in a location, and when that use ended, we're not talking about 1 year of chronic vacancy. We're talking about a chronic vacancy that was recognized about 2012, 2013, and with no real remediation. You could still today walk in and try to get 16,000 square feet and you would get it. So does this go in the mailer? No, but it's a reality, and it's just a strange situation. So our workup on it was, we took the actuals and ignoring all the expenses, and just changed the rent of the credit union space to $10, parking included. Very simple. As to the non-recoverables, well, the statement's quite clear on the amount of non-recoverables. This one is a bit hard for us to try to categorize because of the degree of owner occupancy. You'll note that on our page 53, we did do a calculation on it of 12% and 18% on 2 years. And when I did this myself. I presumed it to be full at the revenue that a potential rent, not what the actual rent was. So it's not a contradiction. It was just a way to determine how much the non-recoverables were. So they're huge in this building, and they're huge in all office buildings. In terms of the cap rate, one of the considerations here is that we have a problem with the building, and the problem is, as I've described it. So your decision-making process is, do you hit it with a cap rate, or do you hit it with a vacancy? And in our mind, it's always clear. If the problem exists, that's a vacancy rate. If the problem is going to happen, it's a cap rate. Everybody knows how bad the vacancy is in it. So we've accounted for it with the rents and the vacancy rates. So from a point going forward, we're quite optimistic. And that's why we've applied a 7.25. Our Collier's cap model base is 6% for the best buildings. And you've already heard that it's not the best building, it's third rate, it's Class C. So we track A's and B's. We would not track this building. And the deficiencies are as listed on page 2. Location, the two things, it's not on the skywalk, and it's really not in a great part of town, which is strange that 2 blocks can make a difference, but it does. North Portage. Again, I hate making comments like this because I don't want them to come out the wrong way, but every time I go there, there's usually, you can add up the number of people asking for money, and it's a lot, and it's a problem with our society for sure. And I, to put it in perspective, is this seems to be a focus of where it happens, and whether you're enlightened or not, it's a disincentive to have a building there. And that's just an unfortunate part of our of the way the world works. As to the other factors, I mean, the assessor said some things that I thought were interesting. It was designed, like, in terms of the age of it, we see no detraction. The quality and condition issues are the fact that it was built for check clearance as a trying to refer you to which picture to show that page. The bulk of the space is as shown on page 10. That's the main floor, and this was in happier times. These are old pictures, and also page 9. So it's going to require obviously some work to do it, and that's a go forward problem, not a go backwards problem. And that was our concern on the cap rate. Why we're looking for 7.25. I would point out that in the last cycle, we had a reverse position. In the last cycle, we had asked for rents at the Winnipeg Civic Credit Union rate, which was $15, but a cap at 8.5, because this is a future problem. Now that this is, I think, the first cycle we get to actually quote the CCA rent at 8.75, and so the problem is now a backwards-looking problem. So a more aggressive cap can be applied. I think the number is fairly consistent with what the issues this property faces, and that's my presentation. And been in it lots of times, lots of inspections, lots of assessors going through, and clients since 2008. That's it.
Merrick, you got some questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairperson. Mr. Neufeld, you've provided rebuttal evidence from 2016. Do you have any more recent leasable lease advertisements from 2019, 2020 that are more relevant? Because, we're only good as the information that we've provided here. You're providing an old lease, so it would have more credibility with regards to the vacancy issues if you have a 2019 or a 2020 lease listing for that. And I'm wondering why you haven't provided that.
Well, the issue with that, of course, relates to admissibility, and you had made some comments when I felt that was appropriate as rebuttal. I'm looking at another listing offering whole floors, and that was updated very, very recently. So
would that be post-reference then?
Yeah, but you asked for it, and
no, but
I'm not gonna.
I asked specifically 20 before the reference date of 2020 or 2019.
Yeah, okay.
Provided information from 2016.
Okay, well, tell you what, I can get someone. Apparently, Colliers has the property back for leasing. I can get one of the agents who are on it over here to testify as to what the difficulties are and how long they've had it.
I'm just,
we're listing again.
I'm just asking a question. Okay, so you know what? I want to expedite this process here.
Yeah, no, but we're showing first floor and fourth floor being marketed. And
is that post-reference, Mr. Neufeld?
It's the last update was post-reference in 2022. But our I know from dealing with our agents, the space has been available since 2012 or earlier.
And how come they haven't reported that on the? You know what? I'm asking questions in circles. If this, okay, wasn't there new construction on 311 Portage Avenue, which is like just across the street from 317 Donald Avenue,
311
which is
Donald, you
brand new
mean?
construction, which isn't on the Skywalk. 311
Oh,
Portage Avenue, where
that's
Merchant
where,
Kitchens is.
right, and
There's Sandick, you know, it's an
Stantec.
OF. Yeah, it's like,
the old
and that's not
hotel.
on the Skywalk, and that's getting a high rent. So I'm just wondering if it was such a poor location for a business, why would they build a brand new property there?
Well, yeah, you know, that's, I guess, one of the things, the story behind that one, of course, is that the restaurants were interested in there because the arena was across the street and it was a good place for them to be. So there's Merchant Kitchen, there's Tim's, and then there's I forgot the other one. So there are three there. And then you have the Alt Hotel as well. And Stantec was the anchor on that. And it was their desire to move downtown, and we got the building built for them. So you know, Stantec had a shot at looking at 317 Donald. I know because we brought them through there. Did not care for it. So you know, that's one market. One building's good, the other one's not. I think the Portage Avenue frontage was a key part of that.
Okay.
I mean,
so,
we've had the old Mother Tucker's place listed for 20 years. No takers. It's been empty. So that's next door to the subject.
so how come as a line item they're showing on my brief, you know, $137,000 of parking revenue, and even on the mailers, they're showing that they're receiving money for the parking, yet you said that there's no value to the parking, even though they've listed on page 34 of my brief, $136,311 of parking rent. And then it's listed as a line item on all the mailers on page 39, yet you place no value on that. Yet
no, that's not what I said. Okay, so first of all, you're asking about your evidence, but I'll refer to mine.
Well, you didn't include the parking.
No. On page 4, this is potential rent as full, the way it's done. So you'll note that the whole amount is $1,246,000, and that's based on book rents for the credit union space and including the parking rent. We ended up using potential rent of $951,000, including the rent. So essentially, we put in a $300,000 discount for treating the space as all that credit union space at a market value as defined by the CCA lease rather than as a book rent. Now, that's the difference.
Okay, but the point is when you look at a deduction for vacancy, for recoverables and shortfall, the total amount here is in structure is 55 and 98. You know, and so you got vacancy at 140. Your amount for vacancy, non-recoverables, and shortfall is significantly higher than on page 4 of the 182,000 that they've reported here. So why is there such a discrepancy?
Because the owner was paying it out of their own pocket for space that they wanted to put on the market. It's as simple as that. They held on to space and had it in their books, but you know, the amount that they're showing as being able to open to the market differs a great deal from what we know they're offering in the market, because we have floors listed, multiple floors listed. So
yeah,
they're just carrying it.
The mailers say something else, and you provided here a lease advertisement from 2016. So, you know, and the other information that you're talking about is post-reference. So it's just, you haven't provided any information that shows us any current listings in 2019 or 20.
Yeah, I don't really know what you're asking.
Okay. Well, it's okay. The quality of the finish of the building, Mr. Neufeld. So are you saying that the quality of finish of this property is similar to an OFC, based on my pictures on page 4, 5, and 6?
Well, the concept of building classification there's another document I could introduce as evidence, but I'll just go verbally. Ken Croach began this concept, his book, and Wayne Johnson ended up purchasing it from Ken. I worked with Ken for many years and with Wayne, and I saw how they put the book together. They had a system, and I finally got a hold of it on how you classify buildings, and they do a numerical one. And I'll tell you what
it's a scale done 1 through 5. I've seen it, Mr. Neufeld.
Well, no, they have location, corner, main artery, views, transit access, area compatibility, pedestrian hub, architectural qualities, tenant quality, on-site parking, connection to pedways, connection to commercial amenities, sprinklers, on-site management, restricted access systems, major building upgrades been done, and floor area, building age. And then they put this all into a numerical chart with all these items and give them grades. So the one I have, of course, never contained 317 Donald because they actually Ken made this around 2000, but it has other buildings and then they rate them. So and these ratings have maintained their position in the Johnson report. Now, Wayne Johnson, last time I spoke to him about this, he said, yeah, I took what Ken had and I work with it, but then I also now talk to the brokers and get their feel. And he says a lot of his direction these days comes from Collier's, Sean Cleaver, because he's getting feedback from him on the way the people, potential tenants look at the site. So we know from that it's a C. And no amount of, this is direct, these are professionals with direct information who are making the decision, and not assessors nor appraisers like me. I wouldn't do this. And the assessment department does it. It's their opinion. They've got a different way of rating it, but it doesn't meet the market.
Are any of your OFC comparables built in the 21st century?
21st.
2000 and earlier.
On this list, I got to think about this. I don't have age built listed here.
Okay, but wouldn't the benefits of a newer building have advances in quality and finishing compared to older buildings?
Here's one I think was built then, 200 Waterfront. So that's the one where
where's 200? Okay, where's that in your brief, Mr. Neufeld? Sorry.
You asked, and it's the office report, page 20.
Okay, thank you. Let me just look that up here. Okay, maybe I missed that one. Page 20.
Yeah.
Page 20 is the Johnson report.
Right. Yeah. You'd ask me my comparables for Cs.
No. I'm asking for because you did in your brief here. You did this on page 19 vacancy rate for Class C office towers. So you have 305 Broadway, 125 Gary, 175 Hargrave, 428 Portage. And I don't believe any of these properties. And some of these properties here we have listed as a B, and you have listed as a C. But it's like,
yeah, no, and I think what we were doing on this particular list was these are the ones that are in dispute, where the city calls them Bs and the market calls them Cs. So that's why this was reproduced.
Okay. And, no other questions. Thank you.
Richard, any questions?
I don't have any, thank you.
Valerie, any questions?
None, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Neufeld. Why does the paper that they sent in show the revenue from parking? Can you explain that to me one more time so I can understand why you're not showing it? Sure.
I knew this was going to come up. I'm looking at their page, my page 3.
Your page
And-
3?
Yeah, so the parking is coded PMT. So if one looks at the column marked current rent, well, let me think. Okay, let's look at the first tenant. Actually, that's a bad one to pick because they have a lot of. Oh no, that's the right one. Credit Union Central. So their book rent is 377,924 at 1545. That's the owner's space. On the right side, there's a charge code called PMT, and he has 66,420 of rental income for parking in here. So those numbers then get reproduced on page 3 at the bottom. So $1,011,000 for base rent and 137,000 for parking and then storage rent. So that total is 1,155,000, 1,155. And it's influenced by the credit union. Now going up to our page 1, where we're using 950, and the biggest change was taking that owner's space of 31,000 feet and changing it by 545 a square foot. So that's 168,000. So taking that 1,155 and subtracting 168,000 for just that user makes it brings it down to 987, and then we also adjusted the rent for, I believe, Solero. Let me just check if, because that's another of the owner's properties. Solero, no, didn't adjust Solero. 260, 143, 228.
I think you adjusted the CCA.
No, that's the actual rent. No, you know what? I don't I think we may have understated our correction by $46,000, 36,000, I'm sorry. That the potential rent, I'm going line items here to line items, and if matching them up, because the only one we should have adjusted is the owner space. So okay, co-op is 1410, Solero's 1385, CCA is 875, Civic is 1580. And we used an 8 CC, yeah, okay. 951. See, that should be 1155. Because that should be 1,001 on page 3, 1,011,000 plus 137 plus 9,146, 157. Yeah. I didn't do this, but I'm always correcting these things. Okay, make life simple here. I would correct this and pump my and it's actually $40,000 difference. I would pump my potential rent upwards by 40,000. That's what I would do.
Well, because right now you're not including any money for parking at all in your brief.
No, I'm trying to provide the total rent because it's included in the rent packages.
But
Are
the
you
point is,
saying
if this was a,
right now, Merrick, I'm asking questions.
yeah, I understand.
I'm still asking them to clarify
Sorry,
that
I
for me.
apologize.
Yeah, I would use I would change that 951 myself personally to 987,000 and I have it here on a spreadsheet. So if I change that to 987, you get any other things here I should be looking at?
Yeah,
It-
well,
it-
I'm looking at what they showed for their total revenue. Their
Yeah.
total revenue was 3, and they're showing 1,246,000 for the revenue on the rents. So the rest must be the income from the parking.
Where are you looking at that?
Now you're gonna make me look for it again.
Oh, 1246. Yeah, I see that on page 4.
Yeah, and that's without putting in the
Right.
rent for the vehicles. And
But
yet they show the income
yeah.
vehicles
Okay.
at a later point.
Yeah, I catch what you're saying here because
And then
there's
that
no
brings up the revenues.
that because there's vacancies. Yeah, I would concede on that point. So then I would say, okay, 1246 and 5.45 times and I'm just adjusting the rent as we had 30903. So it's the 168,000 minus 1246. Yeah, no, I see that. I'm getting 1077578. And that might be a bit more accurate. 1077, or maybe I did see it and I didn't want to point it out. Okay,
That's possible.
possible. Yeah, no, I would concede on that point. And so my potential rent should change to 1077578, and the sole reason being that the book rent was changed to $10. But based on the last deal done and the first floor being inferior, the rest of the stay the same, and that changes the NOI to 753,249 and an indicated value of 10,390,000.
Now let's get back to the other question I had.
Yeah.
You said you adjusted the rent down to 10 because it's an inferior space to the CCA.
The first floor is inferior space,
which is
the data processing is inferior space, and then the other floors they occupy are comparable to the CCA space.
So how'd you come up with $10?
Well, we had an asking rate of $10 on the main floor, and it has been in place since 2017. It's always been our ask, so we'll live with it. And then the 875 was an achieved rate for upper floor space. Lots of weight on that, and the rest was the person who did this said, "Hey, what if we have all these rents? You've got 2 achieved rents, and the latest one being 875, and that average on that is $12 a foot." And I think it was just a question of taking those achieved rates and just averaging it to 10. But again, we've had 2013, 10 years of trying to market this space, and the only deal been made is at 875. So that's all it's ever proven in the last 10 years it can generate, and that's the most recent deal. So we had looked at putting the 875 in as an example, and then ended up being at 10.
Okay, so
I don't know if there's a reason for it.
okay, so now when we go back to the parking issue, and you're showing that they're including it in the rent somehow here.
Well,
Like
the 1246 that you brought forward includes the rent.
Okay,
Includes the parking rent.
I didn't think it did. Hold on.
It did. Look at I'm reading it here.
Okay,
Base rent.
Which page?
Page 4.
Yeah, page 4. Base rent 1101, parking 136, storage 8, total 1246.
Okay. And that's the number we're using there.
That's why, and the only adjustment from the actuals then was the owner space.
Okay. And that's how you came up with the million. Okay, I'm good there. Anything in summation, gentlemen? Rocky, anything in summation?
Yeah, I'm just looking for the right page.
Sorry, I was on mute by accident. I apologize. I'd like a summation, please.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. A lot of times Mr. Neufeld does adjustments on the fly here. One thing that we can't dispute is that there is parking revenue for this property. It's listed as a line item. And even if it's included in the rent per se, you know, there's value to having 60 indoor parking spots. There's debate with regards to if this property is an OFC or OFB. I don't know of any OFC properties that have indoor parking lots. This property does. The quality of finish in the pictures that I presented here show that this property is not of OFC quality, it's of OFB quality. And you can see that in my brief as well. A lot of times we are told that one sale doesn't make a market rent. You know, one rent does not show a market rent. And I understand that Mr. Neufeld's showing us reference date from 2016, but I'm just wondering if he had mentioned current leases, are they asking for $10 a square foot on the new leases that they're looking for? We don't know that because he hasn't provided that as information. And at the end of the day, I believe whatever happens from this appeal, it's going to be moving forward to a second level court anyways, just based on the history of the property. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld?
We have a building that doesn't really fit into the model properly because it's an owner-occupied purpose-built building that is office and data processing, and that's what everyone's losing sight of. So that's what the assessor's losing sight of. This was designed as a data processing building. There is another building in downtown Winnipeg, 150 Fort, which does the same function for the Royal Bank. That was worth looking at in terms of a similar style of use. But that one went obsolete as well. So we have this obsolete use, and we have an owner who's sitting holding the property, and then the assessor is suggesting that we can hypothetically value it, and I don't think that works. The last deal, $875 a square foot, 10 years of chronic vacancy. The owner isn't reporting it to the city. Well, that's his right. He's paying the rent, and he's trying to market it and get rid of the space that he's sitting on. But the market knows it because every broker in the city knows it's available. We're all aware that it's available, and the concept of the parking is, again, it's unique. It's closed. So the city's model always breaks up parking and an office. And generally when they do that, they have off-site revenues. For example, the building I'm in, we've got the 5 lots, and 3 of the 5 are available for special event parking. So this one is closed, completely secure. If you are not a tenant of the building, you do not get in there. That means that the income for the parking does not float any differently than the vacancy of the building. Everything is fixed. The costs are fixed. Everything is fixed. Contrary to what the assessor said in his closing, we did account for the parking, but we just put it on the top and then put the vacancy on it because it lives and dies by the same thing, and the shortfall the same thing. It's expensive space to maintain. The number that we picked for the owner's property is the key element in this whole thing. Now, had we used the book rent, we would still be over $100,000 apart on income and on value, we'd still be millions apart. But we chose to look at the last deal made at 875 and influence what the owner's space was worth, and that's standard practice. You don't value owner's space by coming up with a hypothetical number. Look at the last deal made. 10 years of exposure. That was our big difference. I think the rework number I understood. I don't prepare these myself, and I do understand that we should that we have to look at that. I think we corrected the only deficiency that I noted, and that value is 10,390,000, consistent with the valuations of the property over time and based on its unique obsolescence. I did mention that there is a sale of a similar operation at 195 Fort, and I'm looking at the sale, and it's very consistent with what we're saying in our workup for value. And you'll see it in your evidence. Thank you. That's my presentation.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And we're going to move on to the next item.
I need to take a quick recess, like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, please.
We'll do a little longer. We'll go to at least 5. Okay, before we start on this, I'll call the meeting back to order. Before we start on the next item, are we confirming on this one as well, the liability and?
No, it's just the recommendation.
On this one?
Yeah.
It says rec. Oh, there's a rec on this one? Okay. Okay. If you can read it in then, please.
You're mute, Merrick.
Merrick, you're on mute. Yeah.
Sorry, guys, I apologize for that.
Okay.
File number is 22-2709, roll number 075690663000. The initial value for this property was $5,797,000. And based on my research of this property, I was only able to research so much of it because we only had the 2020 mailer, not the 2021 mailer for this. And so my recommendation is actually a bit higher than what I presented here on page 1 of my brief. The value is $5,507,000, so an $8,000 difference. And it was using an area of 29,807. I had noticed a discrepancy that we had initially 31,375, and I've dropped that just based on what we had used in 2020, which was confirmed.
Okay.
Just as an overview, because this property is very unique because like I stated before with regards to the value, because it's sort of one complex, but there's 3 different roll numbers for this property that we have on this. And it's really unique because of the fact that the first floor of the building is retail, and then the second floor and third floor is office space. So my recommended value is $5,507,000. Thank you.
Mr. Neufeld, are you good with that, or are we proceeding?
I'm just waiting for an answer from the owner. I did email him this morning. Same as before, I have no idea what he'll want me to do, so we'll accept it for now, and the assessor is aware that if I get instructions to the contrary, I'll appeal.
Merrick, you okay with that?
Yeah, that seems reasonable enough. You know, and I would like to have cleaned it up better if I could have had access to the 2021 mailer.
So you're going with the corrected value of $5,507,000, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the panel members?
None.
Valerie?
None.
Thank you. I guess we'll move on to the next one. I like that.
Oh, we're going to save time? We're not. Oh, you know.
You read the information on, did you not?
Yeah, that's fine. I wasn't expecting him. I was expecting to go through a full brief here, so no worries.
No,
Just-
he's
I guess
accepting information.
I apologize. Give me 1 sec, please. Usually, it's like asking a girl to prom. You ask and sometimes you get rejected. So I wasn't expecting to get
Careful what you say now, Merrick.
I wasn't expecting to say yes. Okay, could I proceed with the next one, Mr.
Yes, 1080 Wall Street, please.
File number is 22-2443. Roll number is 13-011-457300. There's two portions of this building. One portion 60T, the other one's 40S. The first portion is $425,000. Second portion is $1,564,000 to come up with a value of $1,989,989. However, after some discussions, and you can see on the bottom of page 1, there's an outstanding appeal for 2021, and I was hoping that we could come to a resolution on both values, both cycles. But unfortunately, I was not able to. But based on my research, I'd like to make a recommendation for this property of $1,326,000.
1,326,000. Mr. Neufeld, you're good with that?
Yeah, I had no pre-warning on this.
Just to provide information to you, Mr. Neufeld, Ayrton and I were talking about this in 2021 and 2023, because it's a city of Winnipeg appeal in 2021. Ayrton, he didn't feel, I don't know if he felt comfortable, but it's just, there was, for different reasons, it didn't go any further.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm just going through the string, which I never read from him.
Because I was trying to do a 2-for-1 special here, Mr. Neufeld. So I felt comfortable with the 23 value, but I was asking for a bit of an increase for 2021.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I see what you're looking for in 21. I'm so you're talking $100 a foot here. What is your split on this?
The split of the following, you know what, I sort of, let me just go back to my file number because I actually had it a bit higher, but because I quoted that first, just give me 1 sec here, Mr. Neufeld. And let me go here. Roughly speaking, it was 329. This is what I had initially. It was it's going to be lower than this, but it was 329 for the 60T.
Yeah.
And 1,076 for the 40S. But let me just bring this up here because this, Mr. Neufeld, when you're negotiating values, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, if we're contemplating accepting it, you'll have to provide those numbers anyway.
Yeah, and I actually have it in front of me here right now, Mr. Neufeld.
Okay.
It's 313 for the 60T.
Yeah.
And for the 40S, it's 1,013,000.
Okay.
1,013,000?
1,013,000, yeah.
And that puts it up to 1,326,000.
That's what I have in front of me here, yes.
Sounds like a deal to me.
Well, it's just
what's the chair's offering his testimony here?
No, and what ended up happening is that the assessment was cut in half. The assessment wasn't cut in half in 2021, And that's why the city appealed it.
Okay, well, I mean, I have the people to talk to, and the funny thing, my client, who most members of the board will know is Josie, the city clerk, former city clerk. I have to speak to her on this. So same as before. Possible we'd appeal it, possible we won't. But for today, everybody can go home.
So you're accepting it for now?
Yeah, yeah. And I want to see what the other parts of the equation would go to as well.
And you're also,
the value that I had, Mr. Neufeld, was 1,050. So it was essentially going up, not even just over 10%. So from 917 to 1,050 for 2021.
Well, I'm thinking you withdraw that one and we won't appeal this one.
Well, the point is, if that's not the deal, Mr. Neufeld. So I
That's
don't mind
fine.
presenting it. I don't mind presenting information.
No, but that's a deal we can discuss later then. That's fine. Okay. We'll accept it as you know our caveat on it.
and you're confirming the multiple.
Yes, that's correct.
Confirming liability and thing. Okay. Any questions from the panel members? Richard?
Yes. What is the rationale you used to come to that new number, Merrick?
What I
What did you
had
say?
done is I had adjusted the rents because we have this property listed as an OFS. The rent that we had for this property was just like $12.50, and that to me that seemed far too high, and so I had adjusted both rents for both properties.
What did you adjust it to?
For just give me 1 sec here, $10 for the OFS portion,
Mm-hmm.
and $8.50 for the banquet hall. Because what happens is there's a banquet hall here. They have weddings, they have socials, they have meetings.
Yep.
And even when I looked at the gross rents that we had here, you know what I mean? Like, I just felt it was more reasonable.
And same cap rate, eh?
Yeah, no other changes.
Did you do up the new NOI?
Actually, you know what? In fairness, I actually even adjusted the cap rate as well.
How about we hear that?
It was a 7.25 to 7.75.
On both?
Yeah, you have to do it on both when there's a
Yeah.
split cost.
And what
Just
about
because-
your NOIs? What's your new NOIs?
My new NOI is 108 996. Oh, pardon me. My new NOI, pardon me, is because I'm looking at this and then it's 102 792.
And what's the split on that?
313 and 1,013,000. No,
not the split. You have an NOI for each of the two streams.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I apologize. For the 60T,
Yep.
it's 24 272 78. And then for the 40S, it is 78 519 24.
That's good. Thank you very much.
Val, any questions?
No, none, thanks.
None, thanks. I'm the
None,
same.
thanks.
And now I go over here. And I go, we have heard all the items scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.